All right, good morning, everyone. I hope you're enjoying Labor Day. Happy Labor Day to everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Daniel Cody, giving you commentary and reviews on all things wrestling. Before I get started, I want to encourage all the new viewers. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And special shout out to Claudio Perez. Claudio Perez. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Claudio Perez, thank you so much for your subscription. It means the world. Thanks for joining. With that being said, let's get started with today's review of AEW All Out. If you guys saw AEW All Out last night, it was awesome. I personally enjoyed it. I can't really talk about every little thing that happened, but there were so many great things that I really want to get into. First, starting off with the debut of Ruby Soho, which we know from WWE as Ruby White Riot, leader of the Riot Squad, which also features Liv Morgan, who is on SmackDown. But she made a surprise return at AEW last night, All Out, and won the Women's Casino Battle Royal last night. So that was completely awesome. Great ovation for her. Also, we had Big Show, who we know as Paul White, come out and destroy, in certain sense, QT Marshall, Billy Gunn, watch your back, traitor. Either way, moving on, let's get down to some really interesting business. First and foremost, let's start with MJF versus Chris Jericho. This was a very important match for Chris Jericho because had he lost, he would have had to retire. And him and MJF have had an amazing rivalry. One of the great matches that I enjoyed was MJF and Pinnacle versus the Inner Circle at Double or Nothing earlier this year. However, this match here was one-on-one between those two. The Inner Circle won that group match, but this one was one-on-one. Although the Inner Circle was like Peter Griffin's family versus the Chicken family. But either way, this match was a great one-on-one match. It was, we 5 stars is not enough. It started off interesting. They fought in the crowd for a little bit. They came back. That mic stand really had to hurt when Chris Jericho hit MJF with it. But MJF took control and did the Ric Flair strut, gave the fans the finger, and did a kind of nasty gesture. That was a nasty gesture. But either way, after stealing, I believe it was when he stole Chris Jericho's code breaker. Jericho was on the outside for a long 9 seconds, miraculously coming back in at the last second, and the match continued. A far away moonsault springboarding from the middle rope onto MJF was not enough. Warlord came out along with Jack Hager, who we used to know as Jack Swagger before going to AEW, changing his name. However, after those two fought, MJF hit the, what's that move called again? I forgot. What's it called? Judas Effect. Judas Effect. I'm sorry, guys. I forgot the word for a second. He hit the Judas Effect, and he pinned him for the 1, 2, 3. But what the referee did not see was that his foot was on the rope. Jericho, we were speaking of. I'm like, no, ref, the foot was on the rope. The foot was on the rope, ref. And I was just going off the entire time, just having fun, watching the whole show. The fans were doing the same thing. Thankfully, there was another ref who witnessed the whole thing while trying to separate Jack Hager and Warlord. But either way, the match continued. A couple of close calls, including the Jericho's code breaker, didn't work out. So MJF went for the armbar, and as some of us saw a couple of weeks ago, Chris Jericho tapped out to that move. And I was just begging, like, don't tap out, Jericho. Don't tap out. Thankfully, he did not. He reversed it into his walls of Jericho, in which MJF tapped out. Yes. MJF lost this one. Final. But a great rivalry, by the way. That's an awesome rivalry. This is what rivalries are made of. Speaking of which, CM Punk. Man, that was a match. CM Punk versus Darby Allin. Darby made the challenge. CM Punk accepted when he made his appearance, and it was an amazing match. Filling out process. The fans chanting, "Welcome back, you still got it." I didn't expect 30% of the crowd to be behind Darby because it's in Chicago. And if you've ever followed CM Punk, you know that when he wrestles in Chicago, everyone's behind him. I recently, a couple of months ago, did a review on Money in the Bank 2011 where everyone was behind Punk. At least 80% of everyone. About 15% of the kids in the audience were behind Punk. And then I also recently, last week, did a review on a throwback from the past on Extreme Rules 2012, where CM Punk faced Chris Jericho, for those of you who saw that. And for those of you who don't, check it out, you might like it. Check the review out, rather. But my point in saying all of that is within the last two that I reviewed, both were in Chicago. And we all know that when you face CM Punk in Chicago, Chicago is strictly behind him, CM Punk. So I was kind of surprised that 30% of the crowd was behind Darby Allin. But of course, both of those guys are baby faces, so I guess somebody's got to like Darby. And boy, did those guys put on an amazing show. Darby Allin came in really strong. I gotta say this though. I've never seen a stunner like the way Darby Allin delivered it to CM Punk. That was pretty interesting. However, CM Punk later on in the match, after taking some form of control, went for a GTS. But the momentum and the force behind the GTS sent Darby Allin out of the ring for a 9 count, much like we saw in the previous match with Chris Jericho. He came back right at the 9th second to continue the fight. And we saw some amazing highlights from Darby Allin, including his own coffin drop, except this time Punk was standing when it was delivered. We saw him go for a dive from the middle rope onto Punk, as well as a senton bomb, which was awesome to see. However, after mocking the GTS taunt and going for the coffin drop again, CM Punk sat up, not necessarily like The Undertaker, who rumor has it will be on SmackDown this Friday via satellite, I don't know, but he sat up, and of course it led room for him to attempt to go for the GTS, but after a couple of close calls from Darby Allin with his roll-up, CM Punk kicked out and eventually went for the GTS, and 1, 2, 3, ding, CM Punk wins. That was an amazing match, but I really appreciate something that JR said. When the bell rung at the very beginning, JR said, and I quote, "The most welcoming bell I ever heard." Couldn't have said it better, JR. Man. I thought honestly that match right there, that this particular match would be the main event of the night. But considering the plot twists and the situations occurring in this next match, Christian Cage versus Kenny Omega would be the main event of that night. First of all, let me just say this about the match. I forgot for a second that Christian was undefeated ever since coming to AEW. And I know it was not for his Impact Championship, but it was for the AEW Championship. And the goal was to get Christian to unify those belts because apparently TNA and AEW have some sort of partnership. But nonetheless, for the AEW Championship, it was Kenny versus Christian. And I have never seen anyone use the table the way Kenny Omega did it in the beginning of the match. And while in the match and Kenny taking some form of control, JR said that Kenny is not called the best in the world for nothing. If that's the case, then Kenny and CM Punk need to mix it up for the championship one day. But moving on to this match, a great match. We had high flying highlights from Christian, and of course, like I said, I don't know if I would say if he's the best, then him and Punk need to go at it. But of course, Christian and Kenny Omega went at it. I love how JR said, called the turnbuckle barbecue sauceless. That was hilarious. And of course, another fact that I did not know was that Christian had neck problems, which is ironic because I did a review on SummerSlam just about 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, and we saw Edge versus Seth, and Edge was trying to protect his neck because he had neck problems. So both Edge and Christian have neck problems. I did not know that. I knew about Edge, just didn't know about Christian. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because there were three. What is that move called again? There were three snap drops delivered by Kenny Omega. And of course, those snap drops affect his neck. But thankfully, Christian didn't give up yet. And another interesting highlight is when he went for a spear onto the table, and then Christian spearing Kenny, I'm speaking of, through the table, and then coming back and doing a reverse spear to the back, and then the normal spear to the front of Kenny. Kenny kicked out miraculously. I don't know how. So then we have Carl Anderson, who has been in a lot of trouble on social media lately, and his partner Gallows came out and interfered with the match, but that didn't stop too much. Christian went for the kill switch, and Kenny kicked out. And of course, that the things really came to an end when Christian went for, I believe, what is called um, the winged angel. I'm sorry, the winged angel from the top rope, and that was the 1, 2, 3 for the victory. And so after that, the Young Bucks, who you can tell they were limping because they had a 5-star match with the Lucha Brothers, in which they finally lost the titles to the Lucha Brothers, not to be confused with the Lucha House Party. And I must say that match was kind of brutal, especially when one of the guys took the tennis shoe and had thumbtacks on the bottom. That was really hardcore right there. ECW, if ECW were to come back, they would be doing stuff like that, man, for real. But either way, the Young Bucks came out to celebrate, even though they got their butts whooped earlier in the steel cage. An amazing steel cage match, 5-star, by the way. And attacked Christian. They ganged up on Christian. Jungle Boy came out and interfered to try and save it, but that wasn't enough. So Kenny gets the mic and starts boasting on himself. And then shockingly, Adam Cole, who just a couple of weeks ago was fighting Kyle O'Reilly, losing to Kyle O'Reilly in his farewell match, obviously, left and came to AEW. And we thought, everyone was excited, and we all thought that he was going to go for, the Elite Circle, as one of the guys. What's his name again? Shivani. As Shivani said, thought he was going to go for one of the guys, but for the Elite, as he called him. But it was not to be. Plot twist, Adam Cole is on the Elite side as he super kicked Jungle Boy and gave us story time. And the other thing about this is this. This is Adam Cole is on AEW, and one of the best parts about it is he can be closer to his girlfriend, Britt Baker. Say it with me, folks. DMD. You got it. I know some of you are saying it with me at home, but Britt Baker, DMD, and Adam Cole are pals. Them type of pals. So, and thankfully, she was Adam Cole's dentist, as was said on social media. But either way, Adam Cole can be closer to his girlfriend, Britt Baker, who retained her women's championship earlier that night. And plot twist, he's with the guys. He's with Anderson and Kenny and his little game right there. But just when you thought it couldn't get any more interesting, Daniel Bryan. No. I apologize. Bryan Danielson returns. The crowd goes nuts. And I gotta say, that theme song for Bryan Danielson is awesome. It's really awesome. I loved it. I was grooving the entire time. It was a couple of yes chants in the arena. People remembered that. And of course, we all remember Punk spoiling it. Well, not spoiling it, but giving us a hint last week when he said that's someone else's skit and you got to be a little more patient, which spoiled the fact, not spoiled, but gave us a little hint that Daniel Bryan, or should I say Bryan Danielson, was coming to AEW. And the last time we saw him, he was in a loser leaves SmackDown match with Roman Reigns, the head of the table. And now he's on AEW. And I was wondering if that would be one of the places he went. And eventually he went there. That, ladies and gentlemen, is why Christian versus Kenny would be the main event instead of CM Punk versus Darby. Because I honestly thought CM Punk versus Darby would be the main event of that night. But considering the plot twist and the excitement that took place in that last match between Christian and Kenny, that match was perfect to be the main event with Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson, coming to AEW and just blowing the roof off. Well, let me know what you think about the show in the comments section below. That's all the time I have for you today, and I'll be back with another review on all things wrestling. So, sorry guys, there was a fly there. But until next time, have a great Labor Day, have a good holiday, stay safe. Peace out.